All right, welcome everyone to the live launch event of the CURIE Plus. I'm very excited to have you all here today. My name is Julia Kemmesies. I'm the head of marketing for the Ackuretta Americas, and I'll be your host today. Yeah, we're super excited to have you all here, and I think we're going to have a great session. We're going to introduce this new product, which we're all really excited about. I think this is really, truly an amazing upgrade to our existing 3D printing solution, and I can't wait to dive in. So let me share real quick my presentation, and we can get going. All right, the ultimate UV curing oven for dental 3D printing. I'm super excited about this product. It fits in so nicely in the Ackuretta 3D printing solution. I'm going to tell you exactly why that is. And stay tuned for our live Q&A session at the end. If you do have any questions about the product, feel free to shout them during the message. Our Ackuretta team here is also strong in this room, and they'll be able to answer any questions if they are immediate, or we'll just address them in the Q&A later. I am also incredibly excited to introduce to you our guest speakers for today, Jimmy Fincher, a dental technician, and Kelly Fincher as well. So both of them are the owners, and they run the Cosmetic Advantage Dental Lab in Louisville, Texas. And I'm just happy that you guys made it here today. Jimmy and Kelly have a long, a lot of experience with digital dentistry and lecturing on digital dentistry. They've been working with the Ackuretta system for a while now, and I'm super excited to have them share their experience because, there's no one better to hear from than actual users. So thank you, Jimmy and Kelly, for being here today. And we have a lovely picture of you guys with your equipment, actually.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, so what does Ackuretta stand for, and what are our core values, and how does CURIE Plus fit into this whole thing, right? What we strive for at Ackuretta is creating a intuitive 3D printing workflow for dentistry. Is that technicians or even dentists themselves, right? We want to make it as user-friendly as possible. It should be a whole one-click solution from Alpha AI, our slicing software, when you're preparing your print to the finished outcome. What we're also focusing on is having a lot of resins, like the best resins available, validated for the entire workflow to make sure that there's no room for error, and to be sure that everything that comes out is actually meeting the standards of the FDA approval or Canada Health approval, right? Or, there's a lot of different regulations around the world, and we do try to ensure that we can meet those standards accordingly. And the key thing, obviously, about any technology is that it has to be reliable. And I think that is probably one of the number one things we strive for, is to have the equipment perform at its best at all times. And I think, rather than me talking about the Ackuretta 3D printing solution, I would love to hear actually from Kelly and Jimmy, what has been your experience so far? How long have you had the equipment? And, is there something you'd like to share about that? So I'll hand that over to you guys.
Thanks, Julia. So we started, I guess, just to give you a little background about ourselves, we started our lab in 2009. Jimmy is CDT. I'm actually a registered nurse by trade, but I ended up being Jimmy's first unpaid employee, and my job was in the model room. And I did it for about a year, and it didn't work out. I actually hated the model room. And so I think when 3D printing really started showing up in dentistry, for me personally, I was incredibly intrigued because it was a solution to replace something I completely hated, which was our model room at the time. And so we since have purchased 7 printers over the course of the years, the Ackuretta Soul being our 7th one. And we use it in so many applications. We started off just with models, but I'll let Jimmy kind of talk about what things we utilize it in our lab in today.
Yeah. So as Kelly said, we opened up our lab in 2009 in the middle of a recession, because why not? And basically, we only needed one model technician and didn't have a huge need for any printer back then. Well, at least we didn't realize it. But, as soon as that started hitting the market, we decided to try it, because having some sort of digital solution to models just made sense. And, at first, felt like the accuracy for us with printing was always a hindrance. And, being able to replace what we could do with stone models with a printed model at first just wasn't necessarily what we were going to be able to rely on. And as things have changed, and especially with this printer, the Soul, we've now have that confidence, like we're printing any and everything we can possibly get away with. So whether it be our models for putting a crown on, or diagnostics, we do a lot of digital design, and then we will print those diagnostics and send those back to doctors. Custom trays, definitely night guard splints, all of our temporaries. And then now that so many nano ceramics have become so popular, we're doing a lot of printing with nano ceramics, especially for things like our all on 4, all on X, whatever style temporaries. We print all of that stuff now. And just because it's such an amazing material. And the only thing we have to be careful of is not making them look too good, because doctors will, patients won't come back. So that's the only thing we have to make sure we try to balance with those. But what a great material for that, as well as just dentures, our preliminary interim dentures. We're basically printing all of that so that the doctors can use those for try-ins, interims, whatever they're needing to use that for. And now probably the newest thing I would say we're really getting into printing more and more is we still have a lot of cases that we have to traditionally press or kind of fabricate in a traditional way, but being able to not spend the time waxing cases up by hand is kind of a big deal, and it's a huge time saver in a lab. So we're now beginning to turn towards printing our wax so that we can invest and press those things as well. So, I mean, it's really pretty much running the span of everything that we do, being able to find some need or some use for the printers. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, good. I think that really shows how you can just create more efficiency actually with 3D printing. We do say that a lot, right? You do hear that a lot. It creates efficiency, but like people always want to hear the actual how. And I think that really gives you an idea of what, I mean, you guys moved every possible workflow into 3D printing if you could, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. So this is the Accuretta 3D printing solution. We have now launching the CURIE Plus. Now, why is the CURIE Plus the new equipment that's going to make a difference for this workflow, right? And I think in order to show you this, I'm just going to share a video introducing this new product. The CURIE Plus for you all. I think the key thing we're going to say here is it's designed to deliver intuitive 3D printing for dentistry. And it is designed to do that at a high output, right? You want to be able to do maximum capacity at the fastest time possible with the least effort. And I think that's something the CURIE Plus can really deliver. It fits up to 8 full arches, which matches perfectly the Soul's printing capacity for models, right? If you print them vertical, you can print up to 8 full arches, and they will fit perfectly into your CURIE Plus. Right now, the CURIE Plus is validated with about 30 materials available, and we're doing validations for another 100 materials, right? That's undergoing right now. And what's the nice thing is that the library is going to be automatically updated. So you don't need to go look on our website or anything and wait for new materials to come on board. As soon as you're connected to Wi-Fi, those will be automatically updated in your library. And of course, it is compatible with nitrogen sources such as tanks and generators, and those will improve the aesthetics and mechanical properties of your actual prints. And I think that is a very exciting thing, and we'll be talking about this a little bit more later on. All right, introducing CURIE Plus, right? We want to set a new standard in terms of simplicity, right? We want you to have a one-click workflow, and that's really what we're striving for here. We have a Wi-Fi enabled integration with the Soul to make this as seamless as possible. So if you look at this video again, you'll see here up top it says recent prints, right? You click on that and you will automatically have the last print that you printed with your Soul, and it will give you the curing times for that specific resin that you used. And that's really nice because obviously every resin profile is going to be different in terms of curing parameters. And it's really important to have the right curing parameter for each resin, because you don't want to have anything over cured that will mess with the aesthetics of it. And you also don't want anything under cured, because that would be a problem for biocompatibility. So what we do at Accuretta is we ensure that you have exactly what you need and that you can perform at best levels here. So also what you can see on the screen here is that you have below that is frequently used resins, then the resin library and custom settings. And that's also, you know, a bit of like versions and variability, because you may have a resin that is not validated yet, and then you have the ability to actually set custom settings. Be sure when you do that that you actually consult the resin manufacturers to ensure that you have a good validated workflow that you're working with. So we have, as I said already, in fully automated cloud-based resin library updates for the system. This means as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, you're going to get automatic updates for your software and also for your entire resin library. That means you'll never miss any of the updates, and it means you just always have the most recent materials validated and available on your system. And I think that's a really nice version. I think, Kelly, how are you enjoying that feature? I can imagine you would.
Yes, it really is coming from such a different workflow before kind of going into this workflow. It's incredible the amount of speed that you have just from literally taking it off the plate and washing it and then going straight into the cure. There's no having to look up manuals, figuring out, you know, and pre-programming settings. It is just completely seamless. And that has been such a game changer in my availability to do other things instead of having to spend a lot of tedious time looking up stuff. And that's been huge for us.
Yeah, I can imagine, right? If you have like, you know, there's so many resins out there, great resins, and they all have very detailed instructions for use. Yes. But it is a lot of time actually going to look for them, reading them. Every resin manufacturer makes them differently available. So not necessarily the smoothest. And the CURIE Plus resin library really takes away that entire work. Our team and at, you know, Accuretta headquarters really spends a lot of time ensuring that these validations meet the requirements and that they also produce the best results. So, and then the automated resin library updates really just make it so nice and easy for you to have access to that. So that's really how we're striving to improve the experience. And I know in a lab, you know, you have so many cases in a day, you don't want to be worried about, you know, instructions for use for every single resin.
Exactly. I mean, in a day's time, I can print whether it's a model and then a diagnostic wax up and then a custom tray. And I'm constantly just switching. And so it just makes it streamlined. There's no switching out, looking up, changing parameters. It's just all right there for you.
Yeah. Right. All right. Then we also have an automatic door mechanism here. And I mean, the key thing on that is really that you have the door entirely locked during the entirety of the curing process. You can't interrupt it, right? I mean, you could, but you know, we want to make sure that the curing process is completed before you open and close the door. So that is really, just prevents you from having anything not fully cured. This could be a problem with different curing units, right? That if you accidentally open it during a curing process, you may have some issues with the final result. So this really prevents you from doing any of that. And just another safety feature of this product. And you see how nice and big the chamber is here in this video, right? You have it up to 8 full arches. You have a lot of space in there, and the light distribution ensures that everything is evenly cured. And we're going to get into this in a second. So, I mean, I guess you already touched a little bit on the simplicity of it. Can you tell me a little bit, Kelly and Jimmy, about, how has CURIE Plus, come into your office, and in terms of simplicity, how do you feel about it?
Well, kind of what y'all are already touching on. I mean, just simple things like just the intuitiveness of it. So if you're like me and you're good at making teeth and not much else, then it's really kind of nice because you can print something because it's pretty basic. But once you're done with that, like it'll ask you, how was your print? And so once you answer that question, it's already there in your CURIE Plus. So it's like, man, all I got to do now is just go over there and push a button. It opens up. I already know what materials, it already knows what I'm going to be needing to cure. And so it's just a nice thing to be able to push a few buttons, you just move on, and then you look at the size of the chamber in that CURIE Plus, like that's lab size. So it's not just, hey, I can squeeze a model or maybe two in there. Like I can put tons of stuff in there, and you can get so much curing all at once. It just allows you to do things and replicate what you're doing and do more than just a couple things. So I just feel like even though the footprint is so small, it's actually even well suited for a laboratory. And so I like that, because using some of the other stuff where the equipment that I use, it's all big and bulky, and a lot of it is just fluff, big pieces of plastic and stuff. And I love all the metal construction, and it just feels, I don't know, to me it's kind of stout. So I like that.
Yeah, I think that's actually a nice thing about our whole system, right? The Soul and the CURIE Plus, all metal construction, and at the same time, they are actually built for good efficiency, right? The Soul build platform is relatively large considering how small the printer itself is.
Yeah, and they look nice as well because like some of my other printer, it's all, because it's plastic. Inevitably, some of that material or a smudge from someone's hand, and next thing you know, you've got all this cloudy plastic everywhere. It just doesn't even look good. And I like it when doctors come into the lab and they see this. So just a lot like.
And it's nice to work in a nice environment, right?
Yes, completely.
All right. Yeah, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
I think also just from a training perspective, I've worked with this for years, and so kind of integrating into 3D workflow and even changing systems has been easy. But as I brought in more staff and trained them, just the amount of time it takes to kind of get them up to speed is just cut in half. It's such an easy workflow. Trainability is just there. And we've seen our staff members really embrace it. I mean, as Jimmy talked, he makes the teeth, I print them. And he's actually really gotten more into 3D printing since we've brought this system on, because before he's like, I'm not interested. I've got too many other things to do. And with this, he's like, oh, I want to see this. I want to do it, because he sees the workflow and how easy it is.
That's true.
Love it. All right. Yeah, so let's talk about the actual curing features, right? The technology behind the CURIE Plus, right? So obviously we ensure that you can cure biocompatibility, like biocompatible materials, the class 2 medical applications at the end, right? And how do we achieve that? So we have 65 LEDs inside of the CURIE Plus, and that's literally, it's a larger unit, so you need more LEDs inside of it. And we have a mixed matrix curing, like covering 365, 385, and 405 nanometer UV wavelengths. And what does that mean, right? It just means that you have a more cohesive cure within the resins itself. There are different photo initiators, and they will have different, they will react to different UV wavelengths and then cure fully. So you got to have that to have actually a full cure. That means it's usually better if there is a wide range of, wavelengths here. And then we also have a 360 light distribution. So that is actually a really important point, and a lot of units on the market don't necessarily meet this requirement actually. But 360 light distribution is obviously very important to have an even cure and to ensure that over a long period of time, there's actually, you can guarantee the dimensional stability. And that's a very big topic, obviously, in dental 3D printing, because if you're placing this in a patient's mouth, for example, you can't have any post shrinkage really. You don't want to have to deal with any of that. Yeah, so what is also really nice about the CURIE Plus is really, because of that mixed matrix, you also have really nice aesthetics coming out. And this goes hand in hand with improvements on, resin manufacturers, resins. Like they just, as time passes, the resins are getting better and the aesthetics of the resins are getting better. Luckily, you could say the same thing about our curing technology. You just will see with the CURIE Plus that it has really nice, like we'll show you some cases from Kelly and Jimmy later, and you'll see that it has really nice outcomes. You don't need to believe me, you can let them share their experience later. And yeah, dimensional stability, as I already touched upon this, right? So 360 curing and the mixed matrix make a major difference in ensuring that you have dimensional stability after curing. And, this is accuracy. We oftentimes speak about accuracy in 3D printing and we only talk about the 3D printer, but actually a lot of the accuracy is going to come from what you have with this equipment, with the curing unit. That is actually a really important aspect in ensuring that you have accurate prints in the end. Yeah, the curing performance of the CURIE Plus, you may have seen it in the video, right? It really will depend on which resin you're using. Every resin profile is going to be a bit different. Model materials are somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Restorative materials are somewhere between 2 minutes, and then on the very long end, you're going to have 20 minutes. So, for example, the BEGO material only takes 2.5 minutes to cure, whereas the packed and rolled sculpture material just takes a little bit longer. But to be fair, I think it's always great to have a perfect outcome in the end. And, the curing unit does that work by itself. You don't need to be there for that, right? And then the splint material also takes around between 5 to 10 minutes for each. But again, this is going to be very dependent on which material you're using. All right, Kelly and Jimmy, now I'd love to hear from you guys. What have you been using the CURIE Plus for? How is it fitting into your workflow? And, what's your experience in terms of outcomes? That's, I think.
I think outcome wise, especially like you look at the pictures that you have up right now, custom trays have always been kind of a nuisance. That is something that this material has totally changed. So I love this stuff because we're ripping through those things now. But the Element Model Beige, what's incredible about that, besides how accurate it is, and you're right, that has a lot to do with curing. And when you have a good box that's getting even light distribution, you do get a better cure. And we can fit models to these things, crowns to these models very accurately. But this model material is really nice because it feels like stone. And so that's been really nice with that, because some of the materials, they're a little reflective. And when you're working in the lab and you're making crowns, it's hard to draw on them, or it's hard to kind of see the way light reflects off that stuff when it's really shiny. And that stuff, it looks like dental stone. So I love that material.
Great. I think this is a material a lot of people are are very interested in learning more about. So
yeah, we've gone from, on all of our, whether it's all on X or just anything where we're creating temporaries, we used to mill all that stuff out of a PMMA or some sort of a temporary material. And it worked pretty good, but there was a lot of work for the lab because you kind of had, burrs can only get into certain areas, and burrs are only going to have certain diameters. And so you would overmill or undermill, and then you'd have to go back and you'd have to fix a lot. One of the amazing things with printing, whether it's temporaries or something like this, which is an all-on hybrid sample, we do all that stuff out of the nano ceramics. And the finishing on that stuff and the post-processing, once you get your supports off and smooth that down a little bit, there's just not much else to do. The material is just so clean, so nice. And because you're not dealing with drill compensation from your mill, it's just, interproximals, and the accuracies and the detail is superior to what I can get out of a mill. And so honestly, like little by little, this is replacing the mills, and the printers are there now. It's a matter of the materials really catching up, and they're catching up to where we're doing more and more stuff printing, and we're not bothering with milling. So huge thing.
What is the duration that you would usually leave this with a patient? Like,
this something like this where the patient's going to put that in, they're usually going to wear this for maybe 1 to 3 months. And this material is nice. Being a nano ceramic, it does wear nicely in the mouth. And this allows the patient to kind of create their own little wear patterns into it. And then before you would go to final, that can just be rescanned back in and adapted to those changes. And so being able to create something like this is such a nice, quick way to put something in there that's going to give us something predictable at the end. So this nano ceramic, they've got their 510K clearance, not necessarily for a hybrid, but for a single unit, or even other applications. Like, you can put these in as finals. Mm-hmm. They're rated for it.
And my question for the CURIE Plus, right? So what we've seen in the past is oftentimes that you have a bit of discoloration or something like that coming out. Have you seen any of that, like with the CURIE Plus? Are you happy with the outcomes?
So definitely. So it's true. Like when you first say this pactant, the sculpture, when you first print this and then you clean it all up and you've light cured it, there's almost kind of a little bit of a salmony look to it. You know, it's got just a little bit of a pink, kind of a pink hue to it. But when you clean it all up and you polish it all up, I mean, it is true to color. And so that's been really nice. We also noticed with the night guard material, Kelly would know about this a lot, but we noticed with the night guard material, what is it, the soft or is it the hard?
Both really. I mean,
Okay.
they're going to have a slightly yellowish hue when they initially come out. But if once you've given it about 24 hours, that goes away. And once you've polished it, they look beautiful.
They look, yeah, just like that picture. And
yeah,
so
on the screen,
I would have,
are soft.
I would have bet you money when Kelly first told me that it's yellow now, but it's going to change in a day. I just kind of, you know, thought to myself, I don't think so. You're crazy. But honestly, after about a day, that stuff lightens up, you polish it up, and it's really nice and clear.
Yeah, I think that is actually like a beautiful looking night guard. I mean, it doesn't necessarily aesthetics for night guards, right? It's always a question, do you need it? But it's obviously nice to have something that has a good, like, clean look to it. Yeah.
Yes, something I've had doctors complain about. So we know we have whatever material we use, we know it has to look good. It almost has to look, you know, like it was flasked and packed. So, and this material does it, and it's nice, especially that thermal material, because you warm it up, it's a little bit pliable. I mean, it's fantastic to be able to print those.
Yeah, lovely. I think thank you so much, guys, for sharing your cases here as well. I think I love how this has come out, and you can really see how, you know, how you characterize it, and that just looks beautiful. Like, I think that's really nicely done. Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, guys, when I give a shout out here as well, right? So Kelly and Jimmy also have a design, you know, they have their own little design center as well, zirconiamilling.com. And then they have, you know, their lab that is Cosmetic Advantage Dental Lab. So if you are interested in working with someone to have design services done, then, you know, you can take that link right here, the zirconiamilling.com. And they actually have like a little Ackuretta button there as well. So you can get your designs done by them. And as you see, they do fantastic work.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about the validated materials, right? As I said, not all materials are validated at this point, but we are getting there really quickly. We have the Ackuretta materials, obviously all validated, BEGO, Keystone, Pacton, and VOCO. And these are probably some of the most important ones for FDA and Canada Health approval. As I said, though, all the other validations are ongoing and will be available really, really shortly. So not to worry about this. And it is actually very lovely. We have some of our resin manufacturers that have shared their experience with the CURIE Plus with us as well. So let me pull that up for us.
Hello, my name is Patrick Mösken, and I'm responsible for the validation of BEGO Vaseo 3D printing materials on a wide variety of 3D printing system components. During the validation of the new Ackuretta CURIE Plus, we're impressed by the excellent mechanical and aesthetic properties we achieved when curing our restorative resins, Vaseo Smile Crown Plus, Vaseo Smile Temp, and Vaseo Smile Teeth.
We from SAREMCO are glad to officially validate SAREMCO Print Crown Tech on the new CURIE Plus from Ackuretta. With an average of 150 megapascal of flexural strength, according to the ISO 4049, the material shows excellent physical values. Further post-processing, according to the Crown Tech fabrication manuals, will also result in excellent aesthetics. And soon we're going to validate also the Infinity from Ackuretta. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you to the BEGO team and the SAREMCO team for sending us their videos as well. I want to mention here, so BEGO and SAREMCO both actually have materials on the market that also have FDA approval for single unit crowns for permanent restorations, actually. So their materials are also really have good flexural strength and have like great wear experience. So if you do want to learn anything more about this, feel free to send us a message. We work closely with them and make sure that we can provide you some information about their materials as well. Yeah, so I think we often get the question, what is a validated workflow actually? And I think I want to touch on this because, the whole Accuretta 3D printing solution from start to end is what we call the validated workflow. But, oftentimes people associate that just with the printer or a specific curing unit. So let's dive into that real quick. What we validate is really from the beginning. You have the settings in our Alpha AI software. You have around 30 resin manufacturers are all listed there, and you just select the resin manufacturer, and then you go and select the resin profile that for that specific manufacturer. And what it does, it tells the printer exactly the printing parameters. So, the curing time for each layer, it tells it like, every resin will have different viscosity, and so therefore there will be a different printing time. And that is really important because if you didn't have this in the slicing software already read in, you would have to figure this out yourself. And that is a really big thing because there's few printers out there that actually have this versatility with these different amount of resins. And so this is a really nice offer we can do at Accuretta to ensure our customers have access to a lot of different resins. So on the Soul printer, then it'll just show you exactly what you're printing, and it'll have the parameters automatically built in. You don't need to type anything in the printer. You just click start the print. You make sure that you have resin in the vat, and you make sure you have your build platform on there. And that is literally all you have to worry about. And then in the CURIE Plus now, we've also done it in a way that you can literally just click on the printer. You go to favorites, or you go to, the resin brands, for example, the same way as you would on the Alpha AI software. You click on it and you can just click start, and it will automatically have the curing parameters. It'll set the power for you. It'll set the duty cycle for you. You don't need to worry about any of these little items that with a different curing unit, you may have to, consult the resin manufacturer. You'd have to figure out how to operate it. None of that will have to be done with the CURIE Plus. You just go and start. And then the key thing obviously is that if you follow this exact workflow that is provided by the resin manufacturer and by Accuretta, that's when you have an FDA or a Health Canada approved workflow. And I think that's a really important thing that we need to remember is the actual, workflow is what's validated. So taking only bits and pieces from one workflow isn't going to meet those standards. And I think that's quite important to focus on in dentistry. And I think, Kelly, you were telling me that this is something you also experience. We've talked about the different instructions for use and that you don't have to look this up. But I think this is also something that kind of provides you this peace of mind in the lab.
Yes, it takes out the user error. And so for me, I don't have to worry that I've plugged in something wrong or I've selected the wrong thing because it's all there for me. As long as I've set it up in the beginning correctly, the whole process is going to follow through correctly. And I love that about y'all's validated workflow.
Yeah. I'm very happy that this is something we provide and that we also validate that many resins so that our users are always able to use the newest materials that are, interesting on the market. And yeah, so I think, this open but validated, that's really at the center of what Accuretta stands for.
You take away the worry of an open system. You make it easy for us to do it and do it correctly and give us so many options, because I will tell you, as a user, you're going to have your favorite resins and everyone's is different. It's what works for you. And you guys allow us to customize it to make it work for me with all sorts of options. And that's invaluable.
Right. Thanks, Kelly. All right. So let's just get a quick overview before we go into the Q&A. So if you have questions, guys, start putting them in the chat. I see there's already a bunch of messages down there. I'm very happy about it. Feel free to add more. We're going to get to this in a second. Right. So just the quick specs here on the CURIE Plus. It's validated for industry-leading resins, including Accuretta, BEGO, Keystone, Pacta, and Voco, and more. And it's instantly available with the automatic library updates. We have a high production capacity, up to 8 full arches, which matches perfectly the sole. And you have customizable settings as well as the library that is fully pre-programmed. So there's, if you have something very specific that you want to cure, you can still do that. But you also have the ability to just basically shut down your brain and just send it from your sole to your CURIE Plus. Yeah, you have a 360 light distribution, and you do have compatibility with nitrogen tanks and generators. So that is also something that'll in the future, obviously make a big difference as we're moving towards more permanent restorative 3D printing. That'll be a big game changer, I would say. Yeah, and the unit is not terribly large. It's 14 by 10 inches in size, and I mean, Kelly, you have it in your background, right? Maybe we can pull that up a little bit later, but it's really not a large unit, but it fits 8 full arches, which is awesome. Yeah, that is the CURIE Plus. I think we'll finish this off with an unboxing video of the CURIE Plus so that you guys have an experience of how easy it is actually to set it up, the equipment. And then I think, Kelly, if you can share later on as well your experience of how to set up the equipment. I always say Kelly, but Jimmy, obviously, you did that too. So,
yeah, she knows more than me.
Okay. Kelly, how was Kelly and Jimmy? I'm sorry about this, guys. How was your experience setting the equipment up? Was it easy?
It was perfectly easy, just as the video described it. It's exactly like that. It's plug and play. Set up. Connect to your Wi-Fi or to your Ethernet and go. It takes nothing to get it going.
I think that's really what we want to hear. Did you guys like the little quick tutorial? As you're going in, right? You're clicking through a little bit of the tutorial. Did you find that informative, that you get what you needed from that?
Yeah. In fact, I left that tutorial up for a while as, I was just getting used to it. I just wanted that option. But I looked at it a couple of times and I was like, all right, I'm good. And then you can clear it. And so it doesn't pop up as every time you start it up, but it's perfect. You give us a quick guide start, and you have all the tutorials there. And so you really just inundate us with information that's right at our fingertips. And it's just easy to get going and know that you have everything you need right there.
Yeah, I think that's really, very happy about that experience. I'm very glad to hear that. That's obviously what we go for. And that's obviously also what our team strives to achieve, right? To make sure that our customers can just unpack this and go, and there's nothing to worry about. Yeah. Cool. Okay, guys. If you're ready to actually place your order now, I'm going to drop a link in our chat here, and you guys can click on that. And, if you're from North America, you can fill in your information and we'll actually contact you. If you are from the rest of the world, there's a specific workflow for you guys as well. What is our current offer for the CURIE Plus, right? We have an awesome bundle for North America available right now. That is at $10,240 for the entire Accuretta solution. That is the sole, the cleaning, the CURIE Plus, including the concierge service, which is something we didn't touch on too much in this call, but the concierge service is basically a full remote onboarding and guidance and support for you during the entire time that you have your system. It extends your warranty to 2 years for the sole, which is awesome. And during that time, you're never without any support. And then you also have a value-added bundle included, which means you get the Vocal V-Print splint comfort material with it, and you get the packed-in trial kit with it, which is pretty cool. The packed-in trial kit, I think, is great because it's like these 3 little bottles of bite tray, their rodent sculpture material, and their model material, which is just a really nice way of getting acquainted with printing different things. And it has our medium build platform on it. I think a lot of you have already heard about our medium, our smaller build platforms. What it does is basically it just speeds up your printing time. And that is a really cool thing. If you have any questions about this, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll address it. Yeah, and our Alpha AI Premium is going to be free for the first month. So feel free to try this out as well. This is our bundle. This is available in North America through select distributors. The distributors are Argan, Atlanta Dental, Burkhardt Dental Supply, Cadre, Darby Dental, Henry Schein, Primaltech, and Zahn. And then we also have our distributors in Canada, Central Dental and Henry Schein Canada. So if you have any questions about this bundle, feel free to reach out. And as I said, I'm going to drop a link in the chat and you guys can just click on it, put in your information, and we'll send you a quote. So that's how we're going to do that. All right, I think we're ready for some Q&A. So let me go into the chat here real quick. To close this. Let's see the questions that we got. I saw that there was a bunch of things coming in. Let's start at the bottom. Okay, from Faride Samadani. Hi, I was wondering, why is it better to have a wide range of wavelengths? I think I'll answer this. Jimmy, if you want to jump in on this one as well, I think that might be good to hear from your perspective, right? So why does it matter that you have a mixed matrix is because, as I said in earlier, right, resins have photo initiators in them and they will react. And what happens is they create like firm bonds. And that's what actually turns your resin, your liquid, into an actual piece that is solid. And you need this for biocompatibility, first of all, and also just to make it functional. And why you need a wide range is because there are different photo initiators and resins work with a combination of different photo initiators. So to have a truly biocompatible and well done, you know, basically cured print, that's what you need. Jimmy, do you have any experience? Because you guys have a ton of different printers, maybe.
Right. No, I mean, I think the way you're saying that is spot on. I mean, you know, if you want things to work and be accurate, and I mean that's why those different wavelengths are important. So, yeah.
All right. Different question from Robert Shorey. I have been finding it difficult to get supplies. I'm using Burkhardt. I have asked them to get a new reservoir as well as a replacement can of the Curo Crown A2. It's been several months. Is there a shortage or has Burkhardt dropped the ball? Oh, so Burkhardt, I'm sure, hasn't dropped the ball. But Robert, what we can definitely do, I'll drop you my email address in the chat here, and you can just reach out to me, and we'll take care of this immediately. We'll make sure that your Burkhardt rep also knows about this, and we're good to go. So Robert, what I'm just going to do in the chat is send you my email address, and anyone else, feel free to reach out to me as well here. If you could just send me a message, and then we'll take care of this right away. Here we go. All right. Good. So we got that one. And I think this is maybe interesting from your perspective to share about resins and how do you manage your resins, Jimmy, Kelly? How do you guys take care of that in your office?
So this is actually where I store everything. I've got some in this cabinet behind me and some in some cabinets below. But I actually keep them in an area that doesn't have a lot. It's not a very cold room. If you have a very cold office or area that's cold, that's going to affect your resins more so than if you keep something at more of a room temperature that's slightly warmer, like what we have. We're based out of Texas, so we tend to be hot in general. But we personally, I have a vat for every single resin that I use. Obviously, you can clean out a vat and go between, but because we're high production, we prefer to not have to clean out vats. And so it makes switching in between the materials a lot quicker. But it's just really important that you keep them in a dark place. You keep them stored in a well temperature controlled. Consistency is really the key. You just don't want something that's heating up and cooling down. Obviously, I am near a window, but it's a tinted window and we have blinds. And so it doesn't really affect us very much. But there are some areas I know that could be affected by your windows or doors. But that's been the key for us. And we've had really no problems with our resins being stored in the area in our lab. Yeah.
Good. Great. Yeah, that's good to hear. We have a question for you guys directly from Hubert Joannis. He's saying, are you using the CURIE Plus to cure printed materials from other types of printers?
The answer is yes. I do play around with that. I don't do it with biocompatible materials, only because if some of I can't always directly, so some are based off temperature and light, and then other ones have different settings. And so sometimes you can't always cure them directly the same, depending on the parameters that they've given you. I do play around a lot with my models, but if it is a biocompatible, I have to make sure that I am using something that sticks within the defined parameters. I never want to put something in someone's mouth that I know has not been cured directly the way it's been validated.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we did get questions about the infinity nitrogen generator and what are the benefits of using nitrogen with curing generally, right? So the benefits of using nitrogen are that you create an inert environment in the chamber, which means the UV light hits it more directly, which just means you get an even stronger cure, right? The CURIE Plus meets biocompatibility standards without this, but we have found that with nitrogen curing, you actually reach higher mechanical properties for specific materials, right? And this will again vary depending on which material you're using, and it will further enhance aesthetics. At this point, we are not launching the Infinity Nitrogen Generator yet. However, it will be launched either later this year or like early next year. So, guys, we need to ask you to like hold on this, but it's definitely coming. And as I said, right, you can actually use the CURIE Plus with a nitrogen tank or other generators. And so that'll actually be a nice feature as well. Yeah, Jimmy, Kelly, did you guys want to add anything here for nitrogen curing?
I think it's going to be nice for, like what you're trying to say on our nano ceramics, which is when I like to use the nitrogen, being able to do your light cured staining or some of your over glazes, like those are, really important to be able to cure that way, just because you don't want that weird tacky sensation. And so sometimes, if you don't have that nitrogen in the chamber, it can be difficult and kind of impossible to use those very well. So that's going to be a nice game changer with those.
Great. We have another question from Robert Shorey. During Q&A, can you recommend a material for making night guards? I have not been satisfied with the splint material, and you were saying you were using the Dentona splint material. So what do you guys are using, Kelly and Jimmy?
We actually use Keystone hard clear and Keystone soft clear. Those are our materials of choice. I'm definitely open to trying others, but we started with those and just really had great success. Our clients really like them. The patients have been liking them. We've gotten great feedback because, we are primary crown and bridge, and 3D printing is what has moved us into doing these dentures and removable items, night guards. And so it was a very new thing for us when we started this process. And so we took a few select clients and said, hey, we're going to print you some night guards for free, and we want your feedback. And hands down, our clients were super happy and absolutely loved them. We had to work out, just kind of our own kinks of fits and settings. But after we dialed those in, we've been really happy and very successful with the Keystone materials.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's almost like, when we used to do these more old school, and you would, wax and flask and pack and do a lot of that stuff to really get a pretty clear splint. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's nothing. It's so much easier just to push a button and, design it in 5 minutes and let that thing go. So that material is just it's clear. It wears well. The feedback we're getting from the doctors is that, it does wear nicely. The patients like it, and it's easy to process if you have to do any sort of, whether it's painting on a glaze, where they call it candy coating, or whether you're pumicing and polishing. It's just so easy to work with.
All right. I think that's good feedback. So Robert, I hope you heard that. And I just like the look of it, right? The Keystone material is always great, but now that it's clear, I think that is a really great look. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Robert Landman, is rodent sculpture the only validated material that is approved for single unit crowns? It is not. There are 2 more materials on the US market that I'm aware of that are validated for the Ackuretta system. That is the SAREMCO Crown Tech material and the BEGO Versailles Smart Crown Plus, as you saw in our videos as well. Those are also FDA approved for permanent restorations technically. You have other materials also that are, for temporary use. And it depends on, you may want to compare there on price points. This is something you'd have to check in with your distributor, right? Dentka has a great material for temporary use. There's actually a whole bunch. We also have the Ackuretta Curo Crown material that is also approved for temporary use. So depending on what your usage is, Robert, you may want to check in on that. And as I said, also, you have my email address now in the chat. So feel free to reach out and we can give you a full list. You actually also have the full list on our website, so you can check that as well. Yeah, what are you guys using for temporaries? Do you use everything Pactent, or do you use different materials?
I'm mostly just the sculpture. I just think it's such a nice material. I mean, unless it's some sort of crazy shade, and then you can always use light cured stains. But the shade selection on that sculpture has been really good. So, and it's just such an easy material to work with. And I think Kelly will even say that it's an easy material to print.
It is. And we have used also CURIE Crown. So that's also been a good resin for us. It's been very reliable, very predictable, which is super important for me when I'm using a resin. So we've used both of those pretty consistently and had no problems.
Great. Good to hear.
And I think that with the bundle, that's kind of how we got turned on to Packed In Sculpture to begin with, is it comes in that bundle when you buy the whole system.
Yeah. All right. Question from Anthony. Do the pre-program settings change or take nitrogen into consideration? So when the nitrogen generator in Infinity is coming out, you will have the settings validated as well. So this is actually something that is already ongoing, that we're doing the validations together with the resin manufacturers to ensure that when you click on it, right, you have a nitrogen workflow just available as well. It's going to work the same way basically as it works with the curing unit now. You just start it and it has this in consideration. You will just select whether or not you have a curing with nitrogen or without nitrogen. Now it will not have, if you're working with a nitrogen tank, you will have a different flow rate on nitrogen there. So this will be something to take into consideration. So Anthony, I hope that answered your question. So another question from Hubert Joannis, when can we expect shipping in Canada? So I think, as I said, right, fill in that little message down there at the bottom. I just sent a link, fill that in, and we'll send you information about when it's available and when it's ready for you to receive in Canada right away. Yeah. All right. So we have another question. Will this presentation be available on the Ackuretta website? I could not correct my black screen. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Remo. This whole thing is going to be available on YouTube afterwards. So in the next 1 or 2 days, this will be available online. So you feel free to watch that there, or you can just actually on the same registration link, just come back and watch the replays. That works as well. I hope you were able to, watch this. All right. Elon, hi everyone. Fantastic webinar so far. Kelly and Jimmy, keep up the amazing work. Question, where is the CURIE Plus available in Europe? Oh, okay, Chavi, I see you already answered that. So in Europe, it'll be available through our wholesaler or local dealer, for example, Pseudoforma. So Chavi is actually our sales representative. So feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions for that. And he's in the chat as well, Chavi Samper. All right, another question from Hubert to Jimmy and Kelly. Are you using the CURIE Plus to cure printed? Oh, we already asked that. Materials from other printers. Sorry. All right, let's see if I have any more questions in the chat generally. Otherwise, I think what I can say, and I mean, maybe final question to you guys, Jimmy and Kelly, is, where do you think the Ackuretta system stands out with the CURIE Plus in consideration that you guys have a lot of experience with different printing systems?
So I think for me, it stands out in the fact that Ackuretta has taken out the guesswork of how to successfully print. They have given you validated materials. They've given you a workflow that talks to each other, that allows you to have everything at your fingertips. There's no, it's plug and play. There's no having to set up parameters for curing. There's nothing, they all talk to each other, and it just is, it's streamlined. It's easy. If you're just getting into your 3D printing journey, this one is going to hold your hand and take you through it from start to finish. I know that, like, when I started my journey, it was all trial and error. Half the support that was out there wasn't even dental support. It was just 3D printing support. And Ackuretta just has this entire package meant for dental professionals to successfully get out there and serve your clients and produce things in a very timely and efficient manner. And it's, to me, it's just one of the best ones out there that you could possibly do. And for the price point that it's at, it's an amazing thing to get started with. And the scalability is amazing. I know I didn't really touch on that, but if I'm looking to get a second printer, we use this thing, it runs constantly. And I already have the setup that's going to support having two. And I love that about the system that we have. And so I'm ready to grow, and I'm ready to do more.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Kel, because I think that the scalability of it is so nice for the lab setting, being able to, just plug in more if I need to, but it's just made printing so predictable for us. Whereas to me, it was always kind of a wild card that I almost avoided. That's why I never really cared about printing. It was something like, all right, fine, we got to print. But I really feel like now this has become such a weapon for us in the lab. And I think, again, this thing, whether it's in a lab or in a doctor's office, like it's just going to allow you to do so many more things and to do them in a really efficient time frame and with a degree of accuracy that is it's a must. You have to have that kind of accuracy, and I feel like this printer and this CURIE Plus has actually done that for us, and it's just going to make it so much easier to just keep doing it that way. So it's big.
Yeah, love that feedback. I'm very happy to hear that. I think that's really true. Like the Ackuretta soul, right? Having two souls, as you scale up is such a nice thing. And you're not the first people to tell me that, especially from a lab, right? It's just great to go that way. Yeah, amazing, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to pull up our bundle again. So if you guys are interested in placing an order, if you are from North America, feel free to, contact your local distributor. As I said, we are available through a whole range of different distributors in the US. 1 second here. So for 240, you get the whole system with the concierge service. As I said, we should have touched much more on that because the concierge system makes all the difference. It guides you through the entire setup process. It guides you through your first print. It's our great support team that does that. And yeah, it provides you all the details that you need to have if you're really starting out. And you get a wonderful value-added package with this entire system. That is the Vocal V Print Splint Comfort, the Packed and Trial Kit, and the Medium Build Platform for faster printing, which is really fun. And then the LFAI Premium is a cool, feature on making it even faster because it does auto orientation and auto support settings for your prints. So that's also great, especially if you're starting out. So contact your local distributor if you are from North America. As I said, right, we have Argan, Atlanta Dental, Burkhardt Dental Supply, Cadre, Darby, Henry Schein, Premotech, and Zahn. That's where it will be available. And then in Canada, we also have Central Dental and Henry Schein Canada. So feel free to reach out to them or just fill in that form that I've, that little link that I sent in there, and we'll make sure that you get all the information that you need. If you are from the rest of the world, also follow this link, and our sales team that is also in the chat is very happy to help you with anything that you may have questions on, or if you just want to learn more. Yeah, so feel free to reach out. Kelly and Jimmy, thank you guys so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure hearing your experience. I think we can all agree that it's wonderful to hear from actual users rather than, just Ackuretta reps. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I think we can wrap it up. Have a good one, everyone. And thank you so much for coming. Don't forget to place your orders. And we're looking forward to lots and lots of CURIE Pluses out there. Have a good day, guys.